The red warning lights flashed across the command center of Luna Station. Admiral Heinwu Park stared at the main screen with growing concern. 3 days had passed since the last communication from New Bizan Colony, and the silence was becoming impossible to ignore. "Sir, we've tried every frequency," reported Captain Jin A. Lee from her position at the communications console. "Nothing but static from the entire New Bizan system." Heinwu rubbed his tired eyes. He had served in the Terran Defense Fleet for 32 years and had never seen anything like this. Colonies didn't just go quiet. There were backup systems, emergency beacons, automated distress signals. Something always got through. What about the merchant ships that were scheduled to arrive there? He asked. Commander Taejin Nam pulled up the shipping records on his tablet. The cargo vessel Morning Star was due to dock at New Bizan Station yesterday. We lost contact with them 12 hours after they entered the system. The Admiral felt a cold weight settling in his stomach. One ship could have mechanical problems. A whole colony system going dark was something else entirely. "Sir," called out Lieutenant Wu Jin from the sensor station. "I'm picking up some strange readings from that direction. Very faint, but the energy signatures don't match anything in our database." Hyun Wu walked over to examine the sensor data. The readings were indeed unusual, massive energy discharges that had occurred roughly 72 hours ago, right? When New Bizan had gone silent. "Prep a reconnaissance drone," he ordered. "Long range, full sensor package. I want to know what happened out there." Captain Jinne looked up from her station. "Sir, New Bizan is 18 light hours away. Even with our fastest drone, we won't get real-time data for—" "I know the math, Captain," Hyun Wu interrupted. "But we need eyes on that system, now." The drone launched 6 hours later, its powerful engines pushing it toward the New Bizan system at maximum speed. While they waited, Hyun Wu contacted Earth Command. The conversation with General Mi Young-han was tense and brief. Earth was already concerned about several border colonies reporting unusual alien ship sightings in recent weeks. 22 hours. After launch, the reconnaissance drone reached New Bizan. The first images that came back made everyone in the command center fall silent. New Bizan Station, which had housed 50,000 people, was gone. Not damaged or destroyed, simply gone. Where the massive orbital platform had orbited the colony's main planet, there was nothing but scattered debris and cooling metal fragments. "My God," whispered Captain Jinne. "What could do that to a station that size?" The drone's cameras turned toward New Bizan Prime, the colony's main world. What they saw there was even worse. The planet's surface, which had been covered with thriving cities and agricultural centers just days before, now glowed with an unnatural orange light. "Those are glass craters," Commander Taejin said, his voice barely audible. "The cities have been turned to glass." Hyun Wu stared at the images in horror. New Bizan Prime had been home to 2,300,000 colonists. Families, children, teachers, farmers, engineers, all gone. The drone continued its scan of the system. Every orbital facility had been destroyed. Every settlement on the 3 colonized moons showed the same orange glow of superheated glass. Even the mining stations in the asteroid belt had been reduced to twisted metal. "Sir," Lieutenant Wu Jin called out, his voice shaking. "The drone is picking up weapon signature residue. The energy patterns match the readings we got from the attacks on the Kepler colonies last year." Hyun Wu's blood turned to ice. The Kepler colonies had been attacked by ships belonging to the Veltar Empire, an aggressive alien species that had been expanding their territory along human space. But those attacks had been hit-and-run raids on military outposts. This was something entirely different. "Are you telling me the Veltar did this?" he asked. "The weapon signatures are identical." "Sir, but the scale—" Taejin pulled up comparison data. The energy output required to glass entire cities would need a fleet of at least 200 ships. Captain Jinne was scanning through the colony's last communications. "Sir, I found something." Administrator So-Young Kim sent a final message. Just before communications cut out, the recording played across the command center speakers. So-Young Kim's voice was calm but urgent. "This is New Bizan Colony to any Terran vessel. We have multiple large ships in orbit. They're not responding to our hails. Their configuration doesn't match any known human or allied vessel. They're charging weapons. All civilians are being evacuated to designated shelters. If anyone receives this message, tell Earth that the recording ended in static. Hyun Wu closed his eyes. So-Young Kim had been his classmate at the Naval Academy 40 years ago. She had chosen civilian service, helping to build new worlds for humanity's expansion. She had 3 children. "Sir," Commander Taejin said quietly, "there's more. The drone found debris from evacuation ships. It looks like they targeted the civilian transports as they tried to flee." The command center fell into complete silence. Targeting military installations was one thing. Destroying civilian evacuation ships carrying children was something else entirely. It was genocide. Get me a direct line to Earth Command, Hyun-woo. Ordered, emergency priority. And prep our fastest courier ship. The Council needs to see this footage immediately. As the drone continued its grim survey of the new business system, more details emerged. The attack had been methodical and complete. Every human presence in the system had been eliminated. No survivors, no witnesses. No mercy. Hyun-woo reviewed the data one more time before transmitting it to Earth. 2,300,000 people. Gone. Not just killed, but erased so completely that their cities had been turned to glass. The courier ship Fast Wind departed Luna Station 12 hours later, carrying the reconnaissance data and Hyun-woo's personal report to the Terran High Council. In his report he included his assessment. This was not a military strike or a territorial dispute. This was a deliberate act of genocide designed to terrorize humanity into submission. 3 days later, Hyun-woo stood before the Terran High Council in Geneva. The vast chamber was filled with representatives from every human world, but it was completely silent as the reconnaissance footage played on the main screens. When the images ended, Council President Lee Jae-min spoke first. Admiral Park, in your professional opinion, what response do you recommend? Hyun-woo looked around the chamber at the shocked faces of humanity's leaders. Counselors, New Bizen was not a military target. It was a farming colony with minimal defenses. They killed every man, woman, and child there as a message to us. There can be only one response, which is? Asked Counselor Kim Yeon-soo. Total War Mobilization Protocol 7, Hyun-woo said firmly. Full deployment of all Terran defense assets. The Veltar Empire has declared genocide against humanity. We must respond in kind. The vote was unanimous. For the first time in human history, Protocol 7 was activated. Earth was going to war. The message went out across all human space at exactly 14 o'clock. Greenwich Standard Time. Protocol 7 had never been used before. Most people had forgotten it even existed. But within minutes of the transmission, things began happening that would shock the galaxy. Fleet Admiral Dong Hyun Choi stood in the Strategic Command Center deep beneath the Swiss Alps. Around him, dozens of screens showed military installations across human space coming alive. Shipyards that had been building cargo vessels suddenly switched to warship production. Space stations that looked like research facilities opened hidden weapon bays. Admiral, we're getting responses from all sectors, reported General Mi Young. Han? The hidden fleets are moving to assembly points. Dong Hyun nodded. For 50 years, humanity had been preparing for this moment. While the galaxy saw them as peaceful traders and explorers, Earth had been building the largest military force in galactic history. The secret had been kept by millions of people across hundreds of worlds. On Luna's far side, massive doors opened. In what appeared to be mining facilities, ships began emerging from underground hangars, not the small patrol vessels that most species knew about, but massive dreadnoughts and battleships that had been hidden for decades. Captain Woo Jin SEO watched from the bridge of his destroyer Sharp Blade as the hidden fleet emerged. He had served on border patrol for 15 years and thought he knew how many ships Earth had. He was wrong. Sir, his communications officer called out, I'm counting over 300 ships just from this facility alone. And there are dozens of facilities like this one. Woo Jin stared at the ships filling space around Luna. These weren't the simple patrol vessels he was used to seeing. These were warships built for one purpose, to destroy enemy fleets. Similar scenes played out across human space. The asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter revealed itself to be honeycombed with hidden shipyards. What astronomers had catalogued as empty space rocks were actually massive military installations. Dr. Sumin Ko stood in the Mars orbital station, watching as ships that had been disguised as cargo haulers suddenly revealed their true nature. Weapon systems deployed from hidden compartments. Armor plating slid into place. In minutes, a simple transport ship became a battle cruiser. Doctor, his assistant said quietly, the transformation rate is incredible. How long have we been preparing for this? Since the first contact with hostile aliens 60 years ago, Sun-min replied. Humanity learned early that the galaxy was not a safe place. We decided to be ready. The numbers were staggering. From hidden bases in the outer system, from disguised facilities around every human world, from secret construction yards in deep space, the ships kept coming. Destroyers, cruisers, battleships, carriers, and massive dreadnoughts that were larger than most alien space stations. On Earth, President Han Min-jae addressed the shocked population. Citizens of Earth and all human worlds, what you are seeing today is the result of 50 years of preparation. We have always hoped for peace, but we have prepared for war. The Veltar Empire has chosen to target our civilians. They will learn that this was a terrible mistake. The flagship of the Great Fleet was the TCS Inchin's Vengeance, a dreadnought 15 kilometers long. It had been built in secret over 20 years in a hidden shipyard beyond Pluto. Its existence was known only to the highest levels of Earth's government. Fleet. Admiral Dong Hyen Choi walked the corridors of his flagship for the first time. The ship was a city in space, carrying 50,000 crew members and enough firepower to destroy entire enemy fleets. Its main guns could punch through a planet's crust. Admiral, Captain Subin Lee reported from the bridge, all systems are operational. We're ready for fleet command. Around the massive flagship, other ships took their positions. The fleet was organized into battle groups, each one larger than most alien empires' entire navy. There were fast attack squadrons, heavy bombardment groups, carrier wings, and support fleets. Meanwhile, in Veltar space, war leader Kethruk received disturbing reports. Veltar intelligence ships had detected massive energy signatures coming from human space. The readings didn't make sense. Sciencecast Velanoth, Kethruk called to his chief advisor. These human energy readings cannot be correct. They suggest hundreds of thousands of ships. Velanoth examined the data carefully. War leader, our sensors may be malfunctioning. Humans are a minor species with limited military capability. Perhaps they are moving their entire civilian fleet to appear threatening. Kethruk dismissed the reports. Humans had small patrol fleets and a few outdated warships. The destruction of New Bizan had been intended as a demonstration to force their quick surrender. Soon they would send diplomatic messages begging for mercy, backing human space. The true scale of Earth's military became clear. The final count was 700,000 warships of all classes. The number was so large that it took 3 days just for all ships to report their readiness status. Captain Jin-A Lee, now promoted to admiral and assigned to fleet intelligence, briefed the senior commanders. The Veltar Empire has approximately 150,000 ships across their entire territory. Our advanced scouts indicate they believe we have fewer than 1,000 vessels. The room filled with grim laughter. The Veltar had made their plans based on completely wrong information. General Mi Young-han presented the logistics data. Supplying this fleet will require the entire industrial output of 47 worlds. Food production, ammunition, fuel, spare parts, everything has been prepared and stockpiled. Admiral Hyenwoo Park, now commanding the advance fleet, studied the tactical plans. Our intelligence suggests the Veltar rely on overwhelming initial attacks to break enemy morale. They've never faced an enemy with superior numbers and technology. The fleet began moving toward Veltar space in carefully planned waves. The sight was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Streams of warships stretched across space for thousands of kilometers. Their engine signatures were visible from neighboring star systems. Other alien species detected the massive fleet movement and sent urgent messages to their governments. The peaceful humans had revealed themselves to be the most powerful military force in the galaxy. As the great fleet departed human space, a message was broadcast on all galactic frequencies. Fleet Admiral Dong Hyen Choi's voice was calm but filled with deadly promise. To the Veltar Empire and all who would threaten human civilians, New Bizan was home to 2,300,000 innocent people. They harmed no one. They asked only to build new lives on a distant world. You murdered them all. Now Earth comes for you. There will be justice for New Bizan. The largest military force in galactic history was on the move, and its destination was the heart of the Veltar Empire. The human fleet did not charge blindly into Veltar space. Instead, they moved like hunters stalking dangerous prey. Admiral Hyenwoo Park commanded the advanced scout fleet from his flagship, Silent Arrow. His ships were smaller and faster than the main battle fleet, designed for one purpose: to gather information about the enemy. Colonel Eugene Park led the special operations division from her stealth ship Ghost Walker. The ship was invisible to most sensors, using technology that bent light and energy around its hull. Her team of 200 specialists had trained for years to operate behind enemy lines. Colonel, Lieutenant Commander Jae-ho Kim reported from the pilot station. We're approaching the first Veltar border system. No signs of detection. Eugene studied the tactical display. The Veltar had patrol ships moving in predictable patterns. Their technology was advanced, but their tactics were simple and direct. They relied on brute force rather than clever planning. The Ghost Walker slipped past 3 Veltar patrol vessels without being seen. The alien ships continued their routes, unaware that human eyes were watching them. Eugene's team began their work, placing tiny monitoring devices on Veltar communications relays and scanning their ship designs. Back on the main fleet, analyst Haijin Yoon worked through mountains of intelligence data. She was an expert on alien cultures and had spent years studying the Veltar Empire. What she found disturbed her. "Admiral," she reported to Fleet Admiral Dong Hyen Choi, "the Veltar have used this same tactic 47 times before. They attack a civilian target to terrorize a species into surrender. It has worked every time." Dong Hyen studied the files on his screen. The Veltar had conquered dozens of species using fear and overwhelming initial strikes. They would destroy one defenseless target, then demand complete surrender. Most species gave up rather than face total war. "They expected us to surrender after New Bizan," he said grimly. "They've never encountered a species that would fight back." In Veltar space, Lieutenant Commander Jae-ho Kim piloted his experimental reconnaissance craft Shadowblade through their core systems. The small ship was even more advanced than the Ghostwalker, able to hide among asteroids and space debris while its sensors gathered detailed information. What Jae-ho found shocked him. The Veltar military was spread thin across their empire. Most of their ships were old and poorly maintained. They had grown lazy from decades of easy victories against weaker species. "Their largest fleet concentration has only 8,000 ships," he reported back to Admiral Park. "And half of those appear to be transports, not combat vessels." Colonel Eugene Park's teams penetrated deeper into Veltar space. They hacked into communication networks and discovered something important. The Veltar High Command was confused by reports of human fleet movements. Their spies had counted only a few hundred human ships before the mobilization began. "War leader Kethrak believes our fleet is mostly civilian ships trying to look threatening," Eugene reported during a coded transmission. "They think we have fewer than 5,000 actual warships." The intelligence kept flowing back to the human fleet. The Veltar had no idea what was coming for them. Their entire military doctrine was based on fighting weaker enemies who would surrender quickly. Admiral Hyen-woo Park made a decision. His advanced scout fleet would make first contact with the enemy. They would test Veltar capabilities and show them what human ships could do. The opportunity came at the border system of Velcan. A Veltar patrol fleet of 30 ships was conducting routine sweeps. They were heavy cruisers and destroyers, well-armed and confident in their superiority. Captain Woo Gun SEO commanded the human contact force, 12 ships from Admiral Park's scout fleet. His destroyers and light cruisers were newer and faster than anything the Veltar had, but they were heavily outnumbered. "Sir," his weapons officer reported, "the Veltar ships are approaching. They're broadcasting demands for our surrender." Woo Jin listened to the alien transmission. The Veltar commander's voice was arrogant and threatening. He demanded that the human ships power down their weapons and prepare to be boarded. "Send a response," Woo Jin ordered. "Tell them we decline their offer." The Veltar fleet moved to attack formation. They had done this many times before, a show of overwhelming force that usually made enemies flee in terror. But the human ships did not run. The battle began with the Veltar firing first. Their energy weapons were powerful but slow. The human ships scattered in all directions, their superior speed and maneuverability making them difficult targets. Woo Jin's ship Sharp Blade danced between enemy fire, its advanced engines allowing impossibly tight turns. The Veltar weapons missed repeatedly while the human ships closed to optimal firing range. "All ships engage targets," Woo Jin commanded. The human weapons were different from anything the Veltar had seen before. Instead of slow energy beams, they fired rapid bursts of plasma that could change direction in flight. The Veltar shields, designed to stop direct hits, were useless against weapons that could curve around them. In 6 minutes, 10 Veltar ships were destroyed. Their crews barely had time to understand what was happening before their vessels exploded around them. The remaining Veltar ships tried to retreat, but the human vessels were faster. One by one, they were hunted down and destroyed. The entire enemy patrol fleet was eliminated without a single human ship taking serious damage. In the Veltar High Command Center, war leader Kethrak stared at the battle reports in disbelief. 30 of his ships had been destroyed by only 12 human vessels. The humans had new technology and tactics that his forces had never encountered. "Science Cast Velanoth," he called urgently. "Analyze these battle recordings immediately. How are human ships so fast? How do their weapons curve in flight?" Velanoth studied the data with growing alarm. "War leader, human technology appears to be significantly more advanced than our intelligence suggested. These are not the primitive ships we expected." More disturbing reports began arriving. Veltar border patrols were disappearing without sending distress calls. Communication relays were failing across 3 sectors. Someone was systematically dismantling their intelligence network. Kethrak finally began to understand the magnitude of his error. The humans were not sending desperate civilian ships to beg for mercy. They were conducting professional military operations with superior technology and training. How many human ships are really coming? He asked. Velanoth checked the latest sensor readings from their deep space monitors. The numbers made no sense. War Leader, our sensors indicate massive fleet movements. But the scale appears impossible. We're detecting energy signatures from hundreds of thousands of vessels? That cannot be correct, Ketherick said firmly. No species has that many warships. But as more reports arrived, the truth became undeniable. The humans had hidden their true military strength for decades. The peaceful traders and explorers had been preparing for war all along. Emergency councils convened across the Veltar Empire. For the first time in their history, they faced an enemy with superior numbers and technology. The species they had thought to intimidate into submission was coming to destroy them completely. In human space, the main battle fleet continued its advance toward Veltar territory. 700,000 warships moved through space like an unstoppable tide, carrying with them the promise of justice for New Bizan. The human fleet arrived at Kethmur Prime like a storm made of metal and fire. The Veltar border world had been a symbol of their empire's strength for 200 years. Massive orbital fortresses surrounded the planet, bristling with weapons that had never known defeat. Today, they would learn what human war looked like. Admiral Hyun-Woo Park stood on the bridge of his flagship Silent Arrow, watching as the enemy fleet moved to intercept them. 40,000 Veltar ships had been gathered to defend Kethmur Prime. It was the largest fleet they had ever assembled. Against them came 60,000 human warships from the advanced battle groups. Sir, Captain Subin Lee reported from her position aboard the carrier Soul's Wrath. All fighter squadrons are ready for launch. We have 8,000 attack craft standing by. The Veltar had never seen human fighters before. The small craft were faster than anything in their arsenal and carried weapons powerful enough to damage large warships. Each one was piloted by humans who had trained their entire lives for this moment. War Leader Ketherick watched from his command ship Dominion's Edge as the human fleet approached. Despite his growing fear, he still believed his forces could win. The orbital fortresses alone mounted weapons that could destroy planets. Surely even these advanced humans could not overcome such defenses. All ships maintain formation, he ordered. The humans may have better technology, but we still outnumber their advanced force. We will crush them here and show the galaxy that the Veltar Empire cannot be defeated. Commander Jong-Soo Min prepared his planetary bombardment division for what was to come. His ships carried weapons designed specifically for destroying fortified positions. The humans had learned from studying the ruins of New Bizan. They knew exactly what kind of firepower was needed. The battle began when the Veltar opened fire at maximum range. Thousands of energy beams lanced across space toward the human fleet. But the human ships moved in patterns the Veltar had never seen before. They flowed like water around the incoming fire, their formation shifting and changing constantly. All squadrons, begin attack run. Admiral Park commanded. The human fleet split into dozens of smaller groups, each one moving toward a different target. The Veltar defenders tried to maintain their rigid formation, but the humans attacked from every direction at once. Captain Subin Lee launched her fighters into the chaos. The small craft swarmed around the massive Veltar battleships like angry insects. Their weapons struck weak points in enemy armor while the larger human ships engaged from long range. The first Veltar ship to die was the cruiser Terror's Call. Human plasma torpedoes punched through its shields and tore apart its main engines. The ship spun helplessly as secondary explosions ripped through its hull. Target the command vessels, Admiral Park ordered. Cut off their coordination. Human weapons were precise and deadly. Instead of simply trying to destroy enemy ships, they targeted specific systems. Communication arrays, sensor clusters, and weapon mounts were surgically removed by focused fire. Veltar ships found themselves blind and helpless in minutes. War Leader Ketherick watched in horror as his carefully planned defense collapsed. His ships were being systematically dismantled by an enemy that seemed to know exactly where to strike. The humans fought with a precision that made his own forces look like amateurs. Science cast Velanoth, he called desperately. Activate the orbital fortresses. Full power to all weapons. The massive space stations opened fire with weapons that could shatter moons. Beams of pure energy thick as buildings swept across space toward the human fleet. For a moment it seemed the tide might turn, then Commander Jong-Soo Min's bombardment ships revealed their purpose. The heavy vessels fired projectiles that moved faster than anything the Veltar had seen. The metal slugs, accelerated to incredible speeds, punched through the fortress shields like they weren't there. The first orbital fortress, Eternal Vigilance, died in a chain of explosions that lit up the entire system. 200 years of Veltar engineering vanished in seconds as human kinetic weapons tore it apart from the inside. Impossible, Velenoth whispered as he watched the destruction. Those projectiles have no energy signature. How do they penetrate our shields? The answer was simple but devastating. Human kinetic weapons use pure physics instead of energy fields. The Veltar shields, designed to stop energy beams, were useless against chunks of metal moving at significant fractions of light speed. One by one, the orbital fortresses fell. Each one had taken decades to build and millions of Veltar lives to construct. The humans destroyed them in hours with weapons their enemies couldn't even understand. In space, the battle continued to rage. But it was no longer a battle. It was a demonstration of human military superiority. Veltar ships that had seemed invincible were being taken apart piece by piece. Captain Wujin Seo led a squadron of destroyers against a group of Veltar heavy cruisers. His ships moved in perfect coordination, their AI systems sharing targeting data faster than any organic mind could process. The enemy ships fired desperately, but they might as well have been shooting at ghosts. "Sir," his weapons officer reported. "Enemy cruiser Dark Conquest is requesting surrender." Wujin checked the tactical display. The Veltar ship had lost all weapons and most of its engines. Its crew was trapped in a dying vessel. "Accept their surrender," he ordered. "Transmit evacuation coordinates. We are not here to murder helpless crews." This pattern repeated across the battlefield. Human forces accepted surrenders and provided aid to disabled enemy ships. They fought with ruthless efficiency, but they did not massacre the defeated war leader. Kethruck finally realized the battle was lost. Half his fleet was destroyed or surrendering. The orbital fortresses were gone. His empire's greatest military stronghold was falling to an enemy that seemed to fight with the precision of machines and the mercy of saints. "All ships," he transmitted, "retreat to the secondary defense line. We cannot hold here." But there would be no retreat. Human ships were faster and had been positioned to cut off escape routes. The Veltar fleet was trapped in a net of their own making. Colonel Eugene Park led her special forces teams onto the surface of Kethmer Prime itself. Her soldiers moved through Veltar military installations with surgical precision, capturing data centers and communication hubs. They needed evidence of what had happened at New BUSAN. What they found in the Veltar military archives confirmed humanity's worst fears. The attack on New Bizan had been deliberately planned as a terror strike. Veltar commanders had specifically targeted civilian evacuation ships to maximize psychological impact. They had wanted to break human morale by murdering children. "Admiral," Eugene transmitted to the fleet, "we have confirmation. New Bizan was intentionally targeted for civilian casualties. The Veltar High Command ordered the killing of non-combatants as policy. The news spread through the human fleet like wildfire. Any remaining doubts about the justice of their cause vanished." The Veltar had not just attacked a human world, they had committed genocide as a deliberate act of war. As the battle for Kethmer Prime ended, the human fleet prepared to move deeper into Veltar space. 3 star systems had fallen in 18 hours. The Veltar military was in complete retreat, their forces scattered and demoralized. But Admiral Park knew the hardest fighting was still ahead. The Veltar Empire would make their final stand at their homeworld, gathering every ship they had left. The real test of human resolve was yet to come. The human fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Velanaka system like death itself coming to collect a debt. 700,000 human warships filled space as far as sensors could reach. At the center of this vast armada was the flagship TCS Inchin's Vengeance, its 15-kilometer hull bristling with weapons that could crack worlds. Fleet Admiral Donghayan Choi stood on the bridge of his massive ship, looking at the tactical display that showed the Veltar homeworld. Ahead, Velanakath was an ancient planet home to 12 billion Veltar civilians and the heart of their empire. Around it floated the largest fleet the Veltar had ever assembled. Nearly 200,000 ships gathered in desperate defense. "Sir," Captain Jin-A Lee reported from her position at the communications station, "the Veltar are broadcasting on all frequencies. War leader Kethruck is requesting negotiations." Donghayan listened to the alien transmission. For the first time, the Veltar leader's voice carried no arrogance, only fear. Kethruck spoke of misunderstandings and offered territorial concessions. He promised reparations and peace treaties. He begged for mercy. "Send a response," Donghayan ordered. "Tell them we will accept only unconditional surrender. They will hand over all personnel responsible for the New Bizan genocide for trial. There will be no negotiation." War leader Kethruck received the human response aboard his flagship Empire's Last Hope. Around him, his remaining commanders waited for orders. The Veltar fleet was the largest ever assembled, but intelligence reports suggested the humans outnumbered them more than 3 to 1. "Science cast Velenoth," Kethruck called to his advisor. Do we have any chance of victory? Velanoth studied the sensor readings of the human fleet. The ships were arranged in perfect formations that spoke of discipline and training beyond anything the Veltar possessed. Their weapons and shields were visibly superior to Veltar technology. War leader, Velanoth said quietly, our defeat is mathematically certain. The humans have overwhelming advantages in numbers, technology, and tactical capability. I recommend immediate surrender, but Kethruk could not accept defeat. The Veltar Empire had never surrendered to anyone. For 800 years they had been the dominant power in this region of space. He would not be the leader who ended that legacy. All ships prepare for battle, he ordered. We will show these humans that the Veltar do not yield. Admiral Hyenwoo Park commanded the first wave of the human attack from his flagship Silent Arrow. His orders were clear: disable enemy ships whenever possible, but protect human lives above all else. The Veltar had shown no mercy to New Bizan. Humanity would show them what real warriors looked like. The battle began when the Veltar fleet charged forward in a massive wave. 200,000 ships moving together created a sight that would have terrified any other enemy. But the human fleet simply opened ranks and let them come. All squadrons execute Plan Omega, Admiral Park commanded. The human fleet moved like a living thing. Ships that had seemed scattered suddenly formed into perfect attack formations. The Veltar charge ran headlong into a coordinated defense that had been planned down to the second. Captain Subin Lee launched her fighters from the carrier Souls Wrath. Thousands of small craft swarmed around the massive Veltar battleships. But instead of attacking immediately, they painted targets with laser designators for the larger human ships. The human battle doctrine was unlike anything the Veltar had encountered. Instead of chaotic dogfights, every shot was coordinated. Human ships shared targeting data through quantum communications that operated faster than light itself. Commander, Jiang Su-min's bombardment ships opened fire with their kinetic weapons. Metal slugs moving at incredible speeds punched through Veltar shields and armor like they were made of paper. But these shots were precisely aimed to disable engines and weapons, not to kill crews. Sir, his weapons officer reported. Enemy. Battleship Conquering Storm is dead in space. They're requesting permission to evacuate. Granted, Jiangsu replied. Transmit safe evacuation vectors. We want prisoners, not corpses. War leader Kethruk watched his fleet being systematically dismantled. The humans fought with a precision that made his own forces look like children playing with toys. Worse, they were accepting surrenders and protecting enemy crews. It was a level of military professionalism that the Veltar had never achieved. War leader, his communications officer called out, Admiral Torkin is requesting permission to surrender his battle group. He says further resistance is suicide. Kethruk looked at the tactical display. A quarter of his fleet was already destroyed or disabled. The humans had lost fewer than 100 ships. It was not a battle, it was an execution. In a moment of desperate fury, Kethruk made a fatal decision. He ordered his flagship toward the human command ship, intending to ram the TCS Inchin's Vengeance and take Fleet Admiral Dong Hyen, Troy with him to death, but his own officers had seen enough. Death. Commander Veltash Kethruk S, second in command, stunned his leader with a neural disruptor and took command of the ship. Human fleet? Veltash transmitted. This is Commander Veltash of the Veltar Imperial Navy. I am ordering all Veltar ships to cease fire and surrender immediately. We submit to your authority. The battle ended 18 hours after it began. The largest space battle in galactic history was over. The Veltar Empire had been defeated so completely that their military would never recover. Fleet Admiral Dong Hyen Choi accepted the Veltar surrender aboard his flagship. War leader Kethruk and his surviving commanders were brought before him in chains. The alien who had ordered the destruction of New Bizan now faced human justice. You will be tried for genocide, Dong Hyen told them. Every person responsible for New Bizan will face judgment. This is not revenge, this is justice. In the months that followed, the galaxy watched as humanity reshaped the balance of power. The Terran Federation became the dominant military force, but they used their strength to protect weaker species rather than conquer them, the New Bizan. Protocols were established, galactic laws that made targeting civilians a crime against all sentient life. Any species that violated these laws would face the full might of Earth's fleet. Admiral Hyenwoo Park was promoted to head the new Galactic Defense Command. His mission was to ensure that no other world would suffer New Bizan's fate. The peaceful farmers and children who had died there would be remembered by a galaxy that was now safer because of their sacrifice. Dr. Sung Min Ko established the Military Ethics Council, teaching other species how to wage war with honor. The humans had proven that superior firepower combined with moral restraint made them the natural leaders of galactic civilization. 1 year after the battle, A memorial was dedicated on Earth to the victims of New Bison, Admiral So Young Kim's final message was carved in stone for all to remember. If anyone receives this message, tell Earth that we stood firm. The memorial's inscription read, "They believed we were weak because we sought peace. They learned that our strength was tempered by mercy, our fury guided by justice. New Bison's children will never be forgotten." Above the ceremony, 700,000 human warships formed an honor formation visible from the planet's surface. The galaxy now knew that humanity's greatest weapon was not their technology or numbers, but their refusal to become the monsters they fought against. The Veltar had taught the galaxy an important lesson: never mistake human kindness for human weakness. Those who threatened the innocent would face the full wrath of 700,000 ships and the unbreakable will of a species that protected its own.